So a while back, I made a video about whether or not you could actually 3D print a Marvel Legends figure. And today we're doing kind of a follow-up to that, because the reality is the prices of the Marvel Legends line is starting to creep up. So a little bit ago, the Inhumans box set of Crystal and Lockjaw was announced, and it retails at $70. So we are definitely seeing a price increase with these multi-packs, like with the 3-pack Spider-Man being $90-something for 3 figures, which puts that over $30 a figure. Right here, if we're looking at Crystal as just a $25 figure, then that's saying that Lockjaw is worth $45, which I don't know if that's really true or fair or not. I mean, it's possible that they considered Lockjaw as a Build-A-Figure, or maybe not, because this wouldn't be the first dog that's actually been a Build-A-Figure figure, even though a lot of people had a problem with Cosmo. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a look at Lockjaw himself, what he comes with, and how much he weighs, and he actually kind of weighs a lot. And we're also gonna take a look at a 3D printed version that I did myself. So stick around and we're gonna get right into it. All right, so we are starting with our Marvel Legends Lockjaw, and here's how the rest of the released Inhumans so far look next to Lockjaw. I did do a bit of research to see how tall Lockjaw is supposed to be, and this is about right. I think different artists are gonna draw him maybe a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. I do believe that the Mezco Lockjaw and Black Bolt set had Lockjaw at the head being at the same height as the shoulders of Black Bolt. It looks good that way, but I don't know if that's especially accurate either. But if this is the size that you're happy with, then, you know, great. If not, then what we're gonna look at in a little bit could be a better option for you. So as far as Lockjaw himself, he does come with just a couple of accessories. So he comes with an additional set of hind legs, which would allow him to sit, and an alternate face sculpt as far as the bottom half of his face. And so while I totally get the point of swapping it here and, you know, all of that, I also kind of don't like it. That line is just too prominent to me. And unless you're looking at it like just straight from the front, then you don't see it. But at any other angle, it's really there. And that kind of bugs me a bit, but that's a personal preference. And then his tuning fork thing, I'm not sure if that's the official name or not. It does come with an alternate version with the energy effect, as if he is utilizing his ability to portal to other places. So I just weighed the Lockjaw, and I also weighed Black Bolt and Red Hulk, just so you can get an idea of the weight. So Black Bolt comes in at 2.4 ounces, Red Hulk at 15.4 ounces, and Lockjaw in this particular configuration is 1 pound 5.8 ounces, which is kind of weird. I'm not really sure why Lockjaw needs to be as heavy as he is, especially because he doesn't even have that much articulation. I mean, the legs can, you know, move some, and then there's like ankle, and that's true for all of the legs, and then his tail can move a bit too. But you can just really feel a ton of heft with the torso. So I'm really not clear why it needs to be that heavy. I mean, it's kind of nice in a sense, where sometimes if it feels too light, then it feels cheaper. But if it weighing this much is also why it costs more, then I think they should do away with that. I'd rather have the cheaper figure, because it still looks fine. I think it's actually a good looking figure. But with that said, we are here to talk about a 3D printed version of Lockjaw. So I found this file for free online, and I went ahead and printed it out. So right now what you should be seeing is a time lapse of the different parts that I printed. I did print this on a Bamboo Labs printer, and I did print this at a pretty low layer height to try to get as much detail as possible. I'm considering doing another print at a higher layer height to see if the detail is still as good. So if you do want to see that, I'd love a comment down below so that I know that that's actually of interest to people. But otherwise, now I painted this myself, and I get it, it's not a great paint job, but I wanted to give you a better idea of what it looked like, because what I'll also show right now is how it looked before it was painted. And I wanted this so that we could get a better comparison of how our 3D printed one looks compared to our official Marvel Legends Hasbro one looks. And personally, I think the sculpt of our 3D printed one looks better than our Marvel Legends one. And I'm not saying that because I printed it out and it was obviously way cheaper than this, but really I think it actually just looks better overall. It looks more like the character than what we have over here. Here is a close-up of the two heads, and you can see I didn't do the whites in the eyes. The white that you're seeing in there is actually from the silver from the tuning fork. It definitely kind of just got everywhere, and I did my best to try to paint over it, but once it dried like that. So it probably would be better if I did eyes kind of closer to what we're seeing over here, a more normal eyes, because Lockjaw has always really been kind of depicted as just kind of a large dog with the tuning fork and not like just the black eyes like that. Though I kind of like that look too. Let's take a look at the rest of the print. So on the back side of the head, here's what it looks like. And you can see that I printed it in a brown color, and it's an okay brown. I did go ahead and paint over it with my own brown. This is a mix of brown and a little bit of red, because I was actually trying to paint match the plastic itself as much as I could. And I think I did an okay job. But then when you start adding on the rest of the body parts, like the front torso, then you can see that it doesn't quite match up. So I would have to go over the whole body with this color if I wanted it to look right. But with the torso, here's how that would fit together. Pretty straightforward. You would just plug that in like that. And that technically gives you articulation like this, which in comparison, the Legends one does have as well. But then, because I do think it's interesting, so I do want to show what the inside looks like. So here's the inside of that print. And I mean, pretty straightforward, but I feel like there's gonna be people interested in seeing what the inside looks like. So there you go. And otherwise, the limbs will plug into here. And you can see that there's no way for the limbs to actually stay in. So depending on who you are, you might want to drill a hole and maybe add a screw or something so that it stays attached. I think a person that's good at 3D modeling, definitely not me, could modify this further so that the limbs actually attach in a way that's useful. And with that said, here are our two front limbs. So you can see I did try painting the toenails similar to what we have on the Legends one, where it's a darker color. Now, I didn't do straight black because this is not straight black either. This is actually kind of just a really dark brown. So I tried doing the same thing with mixing a bit of black and brown, but I think mine still came out more black than brown. But just so you can see, it just fits in just like that. Now, the thing about this design is that I'm not totally clear if this model was designed to actually have these limbs like this, or if a person took a model that was just like a straight statue and then cut off the limbs and then added some really basic pegs and peg holes to give it a level of articulation. Otherwise, as far as articulation goes, you can really only kind of do like that, because you can't even kind of go up more than that because of how this would be obstructed. You can see that that would not go very well. But again, a person that's good at making 3D models can make a much better version of Lockjaw. Moving on to the rear, here's how that looks. And there's the inside again, just so you can see. And I wanted to show you how this looks before I did glue it together. But as you can see, once you get it lined up, that all of the like details are actually supposed to line up just like that too. And I do like the detail of like the fur. I think that's actually really well done. All the different kind of textures in there, it looks really good. And here are the rear limbs, basically the same as the front, but obviously for the rear. Now, what's interesting is that the way these printed out is that you can see these gaps right here. And that's part of why I feel like that this model was originally not meant to be an articulated model, and that it was a person that just cut these bits off digitally and then added the peg holes, because normally that should be a full like bit. They shouldn't just have these random like holes in here. And I don't believe that has anything to do with my settings or anything. If I'm wrong and you know why, then let me know. But otherwise, I think it has more to do with the way that the model was created. The other thing I'd like to show about the hind legs is that you can see that there's some roughness under here. And that's because of the supports that I have. I don't know if I should have done something different, which I probably could have. There's probably all kinds of other settings that I could have adjusted to make that look better. But I just want you to be aware that that's how that one looks. I don't think the underside, the foot underneath matters as much, but if some of you are bothered by that, then there you go. It's not nearly as bad on this side because there's nothing that kind of hangs over nearly as much. You can kind of see, I believe that's where the support held this up a bit, and I don't care about this at all since that's not supposed to be seen anyway. But our underside of the foot still looks the same. And this can probably be mitigated in other ways too. I'm certainly not an expert in 3D printing myself, but there you go. Now let's look at it all put together. Here are the two Lockjaws, and poor paint job aside, I do think that the bulkier version of Lockjaw looks better than the kind of skinnier one over here. And looking at our height comparison, I think that I still prefer our slightly bigger Lockjaw than our slightly smaller one in terms of height this time around. Now, the cool thing about 3D printing is that because it's all digital, most files can actually be scaled up or scaled down. So if you were not happy with the Legends one, because in your opinion, maybe it's too big, then you can actually shrink this one to be even smaller. Or if this one doesn't seem to be big enough for you, then you can actually scale this to be however big that you want it to be. You could even make it life size if you had enough time, plastic, and patience. And that's really the power of 3D printing. Now, with that said, what you might want to know is how much this costs, because again, we're talking $45 over here if you're assuming that crystal is a $25 figure. The amount of plastic that this took when you include supports is 328.48 grams of filament. Now, a typical roll of filament is measured in 1 kilogram rolls, and those rolls generally are from $20 to $30 across brands. And that's also not considering if you're buying it in bulk, where you get quite a big discount if you're buying a bunch, but if you're just buying the one roll, even still, that's not that much money. And then of that, the program that I use is Bamboo Slicer. It estimated that amount of filament to be $8.21. So in total, you're looking at under $10 for this, not including paint and all that kind of stuff. Now, obviously that doesn't include the cost of the 3D printer either. So your cost will vary if you're buying a 3D printer just to print Lockjaw, but realistically, you wouldn't be buying it just for Lockjaw. You'd be buying it for Lockjaw, you'd be buying it for Spider-Man, you'd be buying it for dioramas. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do with a 3D printer, even if you're doing just action figures. And I think that's cool. That's part of why I like doing a lot of this kind of stuff. And if you want to see more, let me know in the comments below. And otherwise, check out the last 3D video I did right here.